See Destiny Productions presents Power to Win with Dr. Valerie Daniels-Carter. Expect a powerful half-hour broadcast that allows you to engage from the business world to the spiritual world, to be inspired and to be informed. Remember, you have the power to win with Dr. Valerie Daniels-Carter.
Good evening and welcome to another session of Power to Win, the reality of recovery, building blocks to recovery. We're so pleased that you have joined with us on this evening, and we look forward to a powerful, informative session tonight. We have a special guest with us on tonight, and I will introduce him shortly after our word of prayer. O Lord our God, how excellent is thy name in all the earth, from the rising of the sun until the going down of the same. Your name is worthy to be praised, and we praise and magnify you and glorify you for being God of all. Give us the strength, the wisdom, the knowledge that we need in order to navigate through this season. Bless us is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Again, welcome to Power to Win. Every Tuesday night, if you're watching us live or if you're listening to us on the radio every Monday, Sunday, and Wednesday, we look forward to you sharing with us. The Power to Win series is dealing with the reality of recovery. And tonight we have with us a guest, Dr. Tito Izard, MD, President and CEO of Milwaukee Health Services, Inc. Dr. Izard is a Milwaukee native. He is consistently voted as one of Milwaukee's best physicians. He has 20 years of experience as an educator, an instructor, a chief administrator of medical practices with emphasis on urban health issues, clinical practice, redesign, and reducing health disparities. Dr. Izard developed and implemented an urban health training curriculum for UW and Aurora Healthcare Residency Program. 2006, Dr. Izard left academics to dedicate his practice to the central city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He currently is the president and CEO for Milwaukee Health Services, Inc. His comprehensive health facility provides medical, dental, behavioral, and health services for the economically disadvantaged family, of which 97% of those individuals live below or at 2% below the 200% below the federal poverty level. Dr. Izard received his BA in social work from Marquette University in 1992. He was Marquette's first social worker to become a physician. Dr. Izard matriculated to the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health, receiving his medical degree in 1996. Currently, he serves on the school's Wisconsin Medical Alumni Association Board of Directors. Dr. Izard, welcome to Power to Win, the reality of recovery. We are so appreciative to have such a man of your stature sharing with us tonight. I have a few questions that we would like to get your insight and wisdom on as we navigate through this season. First, would like to start with just dealing with some pretty basic physical things. And then we'd like to then go and deal with some more in-depth questions relative to this pandemic. So there are many schools of thoughts relative to health care and how to properly care for your health. Please share with us 5 top suggestions, doctor, for good health. If I just want to be in good health, give me 5 things that I can do.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say thank you and for a generous welcome and To all those who are listening to Power to Win and participating in this series, it's great that people are taking the initiative to learn more about themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And so with that, when we talk about being healthy, one of the things that you rarely hear people talk about is actually the definition of health. What does it mean? What is the definition of health, and what does it mean to be healthy? And so I like to use my working definition. It's very simple, but in the context of everything we talk about, we'll understand why I use my definition of health or healthy. Healthy can be defined as stable living, exhibiting within the mind, body, and the spirit. And so it's really just about that stability, that balance that you're going to have there between your mind, so which is your mental health, right, your psychological health, your body, which is your physical and physiological self, and your spirit. And oftentimes, I know your audience will appreciate it, but even in healthcare, so many times we try to ignore or discount the spiritual component of us. But that is such a core component of who we are as people that is very foolish to talk about wholeness or wellness and ignore the spirit. So the balance of those three things really is a healthy state. When you have stability that happens in between those three, that's health. So now that we have that basic understanding of health or to be healthy, let's talk about kind of 5 things that we all can do to try to maintain that level of balance or wellness. And so the 5 things, I try to simplify it. And you think about, first of all, is things that are physical. So the first 3 things are all things that we can do to reduce stress, right? And so those first 3 things of the 5 are going to be physical activity, prayer, meditation, and emotional release. So let's talk about each one.
Okay.
So when we talk about being healthy, our physical activity, and some people call it exercise, I just refer to it as general physical activity, because sometimes I like to define and not to label things. So a lot of times, when we talk in terms so that everybody can understand, physical activity, anything that you're doing that is active actually benefits your body. When you say exercise, people typically think about you going to a specific gym or you going to do a specific activity. But the reality is everything that we do that's movement is physical activity, and there is a positive benefit that our body takes on. Okay, and we can talk more later regarding what that means and things that we can actually do. So when you on your daily basis, if you're trying to be healthy, you really have to ask yourself the question, what am I doing in my physical day to keep my body moving, my joints, all my muscles, and is it enough to be able to maintain that level of balance? So physical activity, if you think about how that helps reduce stress, most people will fall into one of those 3 categories or a combination of the 2 when it comes to understanding and reducing your stress. Some people, when they get stressed out, they work out and they say, I'm going to run, 5 miles. That is not me. I'm telling you right now. Other people physical activity. I do something physically to help reduce my stress, and that's great. Some people, number 2 was looking at prayer or meditation. And some people do very well with being able to release all their stress through prayer and whatever your belief system is, and or forms of various types of meditation. Okay, but that doesn't actually work for all people. Some people just aren't spiritual people, and therefore they have to find other ways too of reducing their stress. But that is actually a great way to be able to release stress. In this case, it doesn't necessarily release the physical activity, and therefore you still have to monitor your physical output, but that is a great stress reducer. And the third category of reducing stress of the 5 is looking at the emotional release. And if you think about it, some people, they relieve their stress by talking to others. So you can call them chatterboxes, you can call it whatever, but so they may spend time like calling their family or their friends and just talking through their day, and that is a great release for some people. Some people hate talking, right? and that actually causes more stress. if they had to spend more time talking. So when you think about stress reducers, you got to think in terms of which of those three are you, or a combination of those, to help reduce your stress. And those are things that's going to help you be able to maintain that healthy self of yours. And then the other two, so the number 4 will be your nutrition intake. So these two, the last two things actually are things that we do to prevent stress. So proper nutrition, or what we put into our body, can really help prevent future stress. As well as, and then the 5th one being refueling. And refueling could be measured as terms of rest, making sure you get a good night's sleep. It could be just taking a break. How many of us are go, go, go? We're going all day long. And even when you leave your job, but then you go home, you take care of family members or friends. So you really never take time to rest. And it's so important in these 5 things to think about. Rest is a part of stress reduction. Okay. So whether it's getting a good night's sleep, whether it's making sure that you're taking vacation time. How many of us may have vacation time at work that we still haven't really used? Or all we do is we use our vacation time to do other work that we didn't get to during the rest of the week or the month, and therefore it's technically really not a vacation, right? Other things, just taking time away, being by yourself so that you can pray or meditate, or doing, just the nature walk or something that, refuels you. And then entertainment also, that falls into the category of refueling. It is okay sometimes to take time to do something that's entertaining, whether it's listening to music or whatever it is that you like to do entertainment-wise. And then there's also other types of healthy pleasures, okay? And I underline healthy pleasures, because you don't want to do things that pleasure you that are actually causing more stress to the body. So those are kind of 5 things that we can do to try to maintain that healthy balance: physical activity, prayer, meditation, emotional release, nutritional intake, and then refueling yourself.
Wow, that's great. So it really is the totality of life. It's looking at the whole pie, if you will, and making sure you have the right ingredients in there to make it taste good, your balance and your refreshing of yourself, and taking time to have meditation and prayer, and understanding that in order to recover, in order to understand who you are, you first have to align your body, mind, and soul. That was great. Doc, let me ask you a question. So within our community specifically, there are a number of medical conditions that seem to plague our people: strokes, heart attacks, high blood pressure, and diabetes. Why is that?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and that's a very long answer to why that is, especially when you look at it in the context of health disparities. And so I just like to start off without being too provocative. And this is a whole, lecture discussion that I do anyway. But really, when it comes to, if most of your audience probably are Black or African American, really when we look at health disparities are the direct consequence of being an American descendant of slavery. And I talk about slavery, the actual institution, not the people, the enslaved people. Okay, so as a result of that whole institution, everything was designed, ever since we stepped foot in this country, even before the foundation of the United States as a country, everything was designed to extract from us. Okay, physical extraction, emotional extraction, spiritual extraction. We were not here to actually refuel ourselves. So everything that we just talked about at the beginning of the conversation, it was the exact opposite. So there are consequences to that. Just like we talked about health as being that stability between the mind, body, and spirit. Well, what happens when the opposite of that happens? When there isn't stability, okay, against the mind, the body, and the spirit. Well, when that happens, you get the opposite of health. And that is unfortunately what we're experiencing even today in 2020, that there never has been a restitution or reconciliation or a reparations to restore us back to a health position. So I talk a lot about restorative health equity, meaning what will it take to bring particular African Americans with history of lineage back to wholeness, back to that stability that they have. And when you think about that now in the context of certain types of chronic diseases like strokes, like heart disease, heart attacks, high blood pressure, diabetes, all of those things now exhibit themselves in your body. So your body, what happens internally eventually starts to come out outwardly, right? And so when we're thinking about what we need to do to maintain health, we also have to think in terms of what is that starting spot that I'm coming from? My family, my economic situation, my neighborhood, my community. And if we're already starting off from a position that is already under stress, that gets now expressed externally in our world, and that comes out as high blood pressure. It comes out with potential strokes. So I like to think in terms of when we start thinking about cardiovascular related diseases or conditions. And so I like to think in terms of what are the causes, kind of what are the conditions, and then what are the effects. So when we think about the causes of poor cardiovascular health, there's things I cannot control, and then there's things I can influence, right?
Okay.
So things that I can't control, you can't control your age, right? As we all get older, our risk of developing chronic diseases increases. Chronic diseases such as stroke, hypertension, diabetes, all
Is
that.
that everybody?
So, everybody, when you look at no matter what the ethnic breakdown, everyone as we get older, there is a higher incidence of chronic disease in older people, okay?
Okay.
But when you add that age in addition to this underlying foundation, which we just described, where African Americans have never had restoration or reparations to this level of being whole from what we were before we were brought into this country, well, now everything is magnified, okay? All right, so we look at age, you look at gender, and I'll just list them and then come back to answer your question about them. So age, you look at gender, you look at race and ethnicity, you look at your family history, you look at your socioeconomic status, and you look at environmental exposures. All of those things, in many cases, are things that you may not be able to individually control, all right? But when you look at things that you can influence, though, that is your nutrition. You can influence that physical activity we talked about. You can influence your smoking status. You can influence your weight management, being overweight or working on that. You can influence your knowledge of other risk factors for certain types of conditions. You can influence your routine preventative health screenings. You can influence your medication compliance. So those are all things that we can actively do in our daily lives to say, you may not be able to change it overnight, but you definitely can create a plan to work towards those things. Whereas like your age, you really, you can't do anything about that. You're always going to get older if you're blessed, right? Because the alternative to not getting older is not good at all.
Right, it's not good.
Right. So those are things that are causes to cardiovascular health. And then when we start looking at things that, as far as in our conditions that lead to cardiovascular disease, if we think about a blood vessel, so a blood vessel inside your body that's where your blood is flowing through, right? And so in this terms, we're talking about like your arteries. So arteries are going to be those blood vessels that take oxygenated blood, the good blood, and take it to your organs and to your muscles so that they can work well. You always want oxygen. The only point one of the main points of blood is to deliver oxygen. And so if your blood vessel now, over time, we'll call it that plaque that builds up. If it goes from being nice and open like this to now being like this over time, it still could flow and you may never notice anything. And you may not notice it until that plaque starts to build up and it gets narrower and narrower to the point of it's not necessarily all the way closed, but now you get a blood clot that always runs through our system and it causes a blockage and now it causes trouble. So when we talk about cardiovascular disease, which essentially is a stroke. So what in most cases, if you think about a heart attack versus a stroke versus even things like, kidney failure, it could be the result of those blood vessels narrowing over a period of time. Okay. And as it narrows down, it causes more stress on the body. So things that can lead to that are things like high blood pressure. High blood pressure over time can cause that blood vessel to narrow down. Okay. High cholesterol over time can cause it to happen. High blood sugars can cause that to happen over time. And then there's other things like some people may have some abnormality in the blood vessel that you may not even be aware of, but now it starts to play a role, or other type of organ structural issues. So those are the things that may contribute to those conditions, and especially when you're talking about African Americans, when we know that we have preconditions to have more chronic disease, mainly because of our historical lineage here in this country.
Wow, that is amazing. And this time has gone so quick, I can't even believe it. I have 8 more questions that I need to try to ask you, but I can't.
I talk too much.
That's okay. This is powerful information. I will never forget when I went to Africa and I went to the point of no return, and I saw where our sisters and brothers had to leave Africa and come over to the United States, or actually to wherever they deported them. And it was amazing to me just to see the environment. I could still smell the stench of the slaves that had been transported from that place of no return. It was an amazing experience for me, one I will never, ever forget. And so as we look and understand our heritage, as we look and understand our history, it certainly does dictate how we have to manage going forward. Our time is out now for this session. I want you to know, Milwaukee, this is not just one of the greatest doctors in Milwaukee, but I would say one of the greatest doctors in the nation. Let me pray for your healing. Father, for all things, we are thankful and grateful. Thank you for the wisdom that Dr. Izard has shared with us on today. Touch our bodies, heal our bodies, is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen, and God bless you. Look forward to part 2 of this session.
Again, thanks so much for joining us on tonight. We just heard important information regarding our general health care from Dr. Tito Izard, MD. What a powerful session. I invite you to visit her website at ValerieDanielsCarter.com and listen to some of her previous sessions. Let me share with you some excerpts from some of the sessions that you might have missed.
Vision needs personal attention and private space in order to deliver the revelation. I want to say that one more time because it's so important. Vision needs personal attention and private space to deliver its revelation. When you take time to meditate, when you take time to pray, you gain wisdom and understanding. This quiet time allows God to reveal his plan for you. He's able to share with you what's best for you. I want to ask you a question. Tell me, what value is there in having tons of plans that have no relevancy to your life? I used to have a brother, his name was Reggie. We called him Nino's, or I said Nino's because that's the soul food restaurant, but the restaurant was named after Nino. And he would always come up with all of these plans. He'd go through and grab this person's plan or this person's strategy. And I used to ask him, I said, Reggie, what relevancy does that have to what you're trying to accomplish or what you're trying to do? And he said, I don't know, it just looked good. Everything that looks good is not good for you. So don't waste time living out someone else's dream or strategy
that was not designed for you. I really want to challenge you to understand you have a human survival kit. And I want you to look in that survival kit and determine what you have in it and what will work for you. Don't worry if you don't have all the money you need. Let me tell you a little secret. Don't you tell nobody I told you this, but I'm going to tell you this. I have never had enough money to pay for my vision. Every time I accomplish something, I seek to do something greater, my resources have never matched my vision. Don't worry about it. Because if you're patient enough and you're diligent enough, things will happen and resources will come. Don't worry if you don't have all of the people that you need. The right people will eventually position themselves around you. They were used to operating their drive-through at a normal rate and a normal speed. But now they had to accelerate it in order for us to be able to get to our sales level. Oh, what did that mean for me? That meant I had to go and challenge our employees and add other employees to the drive-through area. I had to give customers notification that your food is fresh, your food is hot, but I need you to slide forward for a minute so I can get that next customer behind you, because I didn't want to lose focus on my customer. So I had to adjust my strategy somewhat in order to be able to capture some of the sales that I needed. If I had just sat there and said, you know what, I'm just going to let my drive-through run just like it ran in 2019, I would have lost some of the capacity that I needed in order to survive. Never lose the capacity that you need and that you really have to have in order to survive. So, well, how do I gain this capacity? How do I gain this understanding? You do it in a number of ways, but the most important way that you do it is you have to make an assessment of where things are. A full conversation needs to be had with everybody in the company, or everybody in your ministry, or everybody in your family. You need to sit everybody down, and you need to talk about accountability. You need to talk about responsibility. You need to talk about how we need to apply things in order for all of us to be successful. And if they don't buy in to what you need, they're not really good for the team. And sometimes you have to make that assessment. It's not always easy to make that assessment. It may be someone that has worked for you for years and years and years. And now here we are at the midst of a crossroad, and they can't get the big picture, and they're stuck in the past. They may not be the individual that you need to work with you in order to get things done, and you may have to shift and reassign some things in different areas in order for you to behaviorally shift their mindset.
We're so glad you joined us tonight. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on YouTube and Instagram. We look forward to seeing you next week. Remember, you have the power to win with Dr. Valerie Daniels Carter.